So I'm hearing these stories. It looks like BRICS, which technically isn't a thing, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Oh, they're gonna make a new currency, and that's finally gonna undermine the dollar. Oh man, India and China are gonna trade in yuan or something, or Russia and China are gonna do ruble. So dollar's over. Dollar's just over.
Right. Nobody needs a dollar anymore because that's all that the dollar is used for, is for some trade between India and China.
And I caveat here, I haven't seen the news source other than Peter Zahan referring to it. So if that news source could be found, I'd be very happy about it. But apparently, somewhat recently, Russia accept yuan for like a billion or 100, some very large amount of money for an oil sale. So Russia sells a bunch of oil to China and accepts yuan for the oil, and then Russia turns around and says, "Hey, China, we want to buy something from you using yuan," and China's like, "Oh, we're not taking that shit." So, like, ooh, here comes the up and rising yuan. China won't even accept it for international payments. Okay, right. Bye bye, dollar.
Wait, China doesn't accept their own currency? Is that what they did?
Yeah.
That's funny.
So Russia basically lost a billion, 100 billion, or whatever amount of oil this was, because they ended up with a bunch of yuan that they can't do anything with, because the country which creates it won't accept it.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
so
That's funny.
um, we should probably link that Mike Norman video. He made this very, very, very clear, where he said there's only one way to get rid of the U.S. dollar as a world currency. There's only one way. And this idea that, okay, China's got all these dollars that they've turned into debt. Like, oh, what if China calls the debt due, right? Which we've gone over ad nauseum, that it's not actually debt. But China's holding all these U.S. treasuries. Let's say China wanted to get rid of all its U.S. money, whether that's treasuries or reserves. Well, they could either sell it on the open exchange market, which would radically drive the price down, and they would kill their own investment. That's option number one for China. And then if they did sell it, somebody else buys it, so the dollars are still out there. Or secondarily, those dollars can be used to purchase something from the United States. That would get the money back in the United States. So the only way to get the money back in the United States, so it's not out being used in the international market, you can't sell it because that just means somebody else is buying it. You have to buy something from the United States, because then the export leaves the United States, and then the money goes back into the United States. And then he points out, well, this would just make the United States stronger, because the industrial capacity would go crazy with us, making and exporting all this stuff, which means that the United States dollar would buy even more from the United States and would be even more valuable. So, I mean, we talked about this. I mean, mainly from this Peter Zahan point of view, the geopolitical situation in countries like Russia and India, that they're not looking that great. And this idea that, oh, we're just going to start trading oil for our currencies instead of the dollar, and that's gonna get rid of the dollar. It's just stupid.
Yeah, I mean, the important thing about the dollar, or about the US, is that the US is the largest economy in the world by far. And so what's an economy? An economy is where goods are purchased and sold. And what unit is being used to do that in the largest economy? It's the US dollar.
Right. So if you want access to the biggest economy on earth,
Yeah, if you want a ticket to the biggest movie theater of the world, in terms of okay, I'm trying to do like
no, I get it's a good analogy or a good
right.
metaphor. Go with it.
Yeah, if you wanna watch a movie in the biggest movie theater of the world, you need a ticket to it, and that ticket, in the case of the U.S. economy, is the U.S. dollar. So US dollar gives you access to the US economy, basically. And um, the US is the largest economy and it's also the largest, probably among the largest taxing authorities in the world and the largest banking systems in the world. And people need dollars to pay their taxes to that taxing authority and to repay their loans to that banking system and to pay interest to that banking system. For all those things, they need US dollars. And then there's also some trade going on, some oil trade and stuff like that. But that is not the sole reason why the US is such an important currency internationally. And I think a lot of people who have that perspective of the petrodollar, they think that without those international agreements of using the US dollar to purchase certain commodities, that then the dollar would be basically useless, and that's not obviously not the case.
Well, and Warren Mosler pointed out to us once that okay, let's say China and Russia start utilizing their respective currencies to trade oil. Okay, there's a difference between the trade and there's a difference between what you're saving as. So if you've already saved up a bunch of dollars like China has and they say, okay, well, we need rubles. Okay, so you sell your dollars to buy rubles to buy the oil, but you're still holding the fucking dollars because that's the valuable thing. Right? And if Russia, gets all these rubles and they're like, well, what can we do with these rubles? Because who else is exchanging rubles? They turn around and do they turn around and buy dollars with it? Because the dollars, again, are the thing that allows you to access the most important economy on the face of the planet. So, and I mean, just re-emphasizing, if it's true that China bought oil with yuan from Russia and then turned around and wouldn't accept it for an international settlement, it can't be a world currency.
Yeah, I mean, the yuan at the moment can't be a world currency for several reasons. Number one is because it's not free floating, it's manipulated by the Chinese government. You can't have an international reserve currency that's propped up by the government because that would be way too, people wouldn't be willing to put their savings into that money because it could break out in one direction or the other at any given moment. That would be an unstable form of saving your reserves. And also, China's economy is not yet large enough for the yuan to be the world's reserve currency. I mean, it is a large economy for the time being, and expectations are incredibly high on the Chinese economy. And from what it looks like, is that they have been way overblown. And rarely anyone takes into considerations the kind of stuff that Peter Zeihan talks about, that we talked about here, that their population is shrinking now.
It's demographic collapse that has never
Yeah.
been seen anywhere on the planet ever.
And the first time we got the glimpse of that was the recent census that they finally published, which suggested that their population declined by, I think, something like 700 million or some. No, I mean, the fact that it declined alone is already bad enough. But I think it was like in the hundreds of millions.
Well, it was about 100 million, and specifically, it was 100 million of the population that's the most important, right? It was like, oh, we overcounted the seniors by 50 million. They didn't overcount them at all. It was all the people associated with this one child policy timeline, which are all either the people who are supposed to be working right now, generating the wealth of the country, or the kids that are supposed to be the next generation coming up for the future.
Oh, here it fell down. Oh, it fell down some 850,000 people from the previous year. Okay, so it was 850,000